Welcome back to our discussion on planning successfully for retirement. After we have our portfolio in place, you cannot just set it and forget about it. We have to make adjustments. We might want to change our overall stock or bond allocation if our time horizon changes. So as we get closer to retirement, we might need to scale back the aggressiveness in our portfolio. As we enter retirement, we might want to have more income generation. Maybe our risk tolerance changes. I've worked with folks who, when I first started working with them, they were more aggressive, and over the years have become more conservative. Some of that has to do with time horizon. Some of it just has to do with how we feel about markets. What about if we want to increase or decrease the amount of funds that we need on a regular basis? That might require us to make an adjustment to our portfolio, or just any other changes in our objectives or circumstances. You know, retirement certainly is the one that we're talking about today. That's an example of something that could trigger a need for an overall adjustment in our asset allocation. But what about if we get a big promotion at work, or if we lose a job, we're laid off, if there's a new child or grandchild that's born, a death in the family, a divorce or separation, or a marriage, or maybe caregiving for family members. We take on different responsibilities, and now suddenly our needs and our portfolio requirements have changes or require changes. So there are times where we may need to make strategic adjustments to our portfolio. There's also managing the risks, the financial risks associated with death. There are survivor needs, estate costs, potentially business continuance or transfer, and we'll talk a little bit about each of those. If you take a look at what's on the screen now, you'll see that we're talking here about disability. And we are 3.5, at the age of 30, we are 3.5 times more likely to suffer a disability than we are to die. At age 40, we are still 3 times more likely to suffer a disability than to die. At age 50, still twice as likely to suffer a disability than to die. If this happens, if you are disabled, you will have significant expenses. You may have to make modifications to a home for accessibility. You may have non-reimbursed medical expenses, personal care costs, transportation costs. And how about just the cost for hiring folks to help with some of the things that you used to be able to do, that the disabled person used to be able to do around the house? Now you need someone else to do all of those things. So disability protection is one of the most important things to consider during our working years. Now we're talking about retirement, so we're going to shift gears into the single largest disability that retired folks could face. And here I'm talking about long-term care. Long-term care, I think the biggest misconception with long-term care is it won't happen to me. Well, it won't happen to me either, but it's happening to folks all the time. They're building new facilities all over the place, and those facilities are getting filled up. So it is happening. And if we take a look at what we're seeing here now on the screen, the odds of being killed in a car accident are 1 in 645. The odds of death from exposure to smoke and fire, 1 in about 1,500. The usage of long-term care by someone who is age 65 or older, there is a 52.3% chance that when you turn 65, you or someone you know will have a long-term care need. And the number of years that individuals typically stay is 2 or more. How about thinking that Medicare will pay the bill? Well, Medicare will cover, as you see here, short-term rehabilitative stays in a skilled nursing facility. But they'll do that only after you've been in the hospital for 3 days, and only if you're medically qualified as both needing but also being able to benefit from the rehabilitative stay. And then they'll only pay up to a maximum of 100 days. So on day 101, it's back out of your pocket. The average cost for long-term care, put it on the screen for you, if you need care at home from a health aide who comes in 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, it's going to run a little more than $50,000. If you're in a nursing home, a semi-private room, and these are, by the way, national averages, semi-private room just over $89,000 per year, a private room over $100,000 per year. We help folks understand whether or not their assets will cover the potential cost of a long-term care stay. So you can know now whether or not entering into a nursing home is going to have a devastating impact on the portfolio that you've spent all these working years building up and saving. So you can know whether or not a stay, and we typically will show folks, if you go into a nursing home and stay there for the average amount of time, between 2 and 3 years, this is the kind of impact it would have, not only on your portfolio, but then how about any loved ones that are still at home? Because what you don't want is to wind up eating away at your assets, and then the spouse is at home, and what are they left to live on if all the assets have been used up at the nursing home? So it's a big, big issue that we all need to understand and prepare for. We also need to just kind of plan our own estate. And to do that, you have to, we'll show you here, we think that putting a plan together will accomplish 4 things. It'll help to preserve assets in the event of your own incapacity during your lifetime. It'll help you to control who gets what, when they get it, and how they get it. Yep, you can detail those types of things. It'll protect the value of the estate for your heirs and your beneficiaries. You can even create special provisions for unique family circumstances. If perhaps you have a child or a member of the family who is going to require some type of care and income for their lifetime, you can put provisions in that that individual is cared for the rest of his or her life. You can also fulfill any charitable objectives that you have inside of that estate plan. There are 2 significant tax events that can occur when we're talking about dealing with estate planning. The first is the federal estate tax, and we'll see in a moment that the federal estate tax has increased. The limits have increased significantly over the last several years. But in order to determine whether or not you have a federal estate tax issue, you need to add up everything that you own, so your house, your possessions, your investment and savings, your retirement accounts, any business ownerships, and any life insurance that is owned inside of your estate. When you add all of those things up, you get your total Oh, by the way, subtract anything that you owe. So all the stuff that is in your estate minus any debts, and add in your life insurance, don't forget, that gives you your federal taxable estate. Now we'll talk about the limits there in a moment, but for Pennsylvania, there's also a Pennsylvania estate tax, the PA inheritance tax. For that, the calculation is a little bit different. You still add up everything that you own, you subtract your debts, you don't include life insurance for Pennsylvania. So add up everything you own minus what you owe, that gives you your PA taxable estate. Now if you look at what's on the screen, you'll see I like this. This was an easier concept to explain in 2010 when the federal estate tax had been repealed. But they only repealed it for 1 year and then it came back. So here we are now in 2019. I think there are two important things to understand. The first is that if you do qualify for federal estate tax, the rate is substantial. It's 40% rate. The good news is there's an exemption, and in 2019 that exemption is $11.4 million. So if your estate is under that, you don't have to worry about the federal estate tax. In the event that they permanently repeal the federal estate tax, which I don't think is likely to happen, but I think they'll continue to adjust the federal estate tax. But even if that went away, you're still going to have income tax on your retirement plan money, capital gains tax, and state inheritance tax. Now let's take a look at what's on the screen here. The Pennsylvania state inheritance tax. First, in Pennsylvania, when one spouse passes away, they can pass everything to the other spouse tax-free. There is no what used to be known as a widow's tax. So when one spouse passes away, everything can move tax-free to the other spouse. It is at the death of the remaining spouse or at the death of a single person that the following schedule applies. When you're passing assets to a spouse or to charities, 0%. When you're passing assets to linear descendants, it's 4.5%. And linear just means kids, grandkids, grandmother, parents, etc. When we're passing to siblings, it's a 12% tax rate, and anybody else is 15%. That's the Pennsylvania inheritance tax. Let's get back to this idea of starting with your goals. If you look at the screen, your goals can be very different. We all have very unique goals and circumstances, but there are also some common themes. Folks might want to purchase a home, fund an education, start up a business, care for their parents, retire comfortably, estate plan or charitably plan. The sources that we have available for that include, they aren't limited to, but they include our own personal savings, any future pension benefits that we may have, Social Security benefits, inheritance potentially, 401k, or legal and insurance funds could be there. We think you ought to take the time to assemble and monitor and then manage your portfolio. And in order to do that, the things that are needed, first and foremost, you have to have the time to do that. You have to have the education and the inclination to do that. You need the resources to do that. You need the judgment and the experience to do that. Can you do that on your own? Perhaps, or you can work with folks who can help guide you to those goals. We think that working with the right person or financial advisor or firm can make a big difference, and there are lots of different types of firms and financial advisors out there. Take a look at what's on the screen, and we just give a short description of some of the different types of advisors. There are discount brokers, insurance agents, robo-advisors, independent advisors. We think, by the way, that working with someone who is unbiased and doesn't have any proprietary products is probably in your best interest. But you can take a look at the different types of advisors that are out there and decide what's right for you. As we said up front, we think that there are 6 main steps to financial success. It includes and starts with determining what your goals are and then writing those goals down. Analyzing your current situation. We have to know where we are and we have to know where we want to go. Then we have to create a plan that's going to help us get to our stated objectives. Then up to that point, we've done lots of good work, but if we don't do step number 4 and implement the plan, then it will all be for naught. So then we have to implement, then we have to continue to monitor and adjust the plan as necessary, and then finally, you have to continue to educate yourself. We appreciate you spending some time with us. If there's anything that we can do, please feel free to call. You can reach out to us at any time. The locations include Bethel Park, Wexford, downtown, and Beaver. Thank you for joining us for this session on being financially prepared for retirement.